Live from the news station, this is 7 News at Noon.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Rochelle Spence. Breaking news. This is a live look from inside the Spartanburg County courtroom. That's where Todd Kohlhepp has pleaded guilty to killing 7 people. This was all part of a plea deal, taking the death penalty off the table. Instead, he now faces 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole or possibility of appeal. 7 News reporter Vanessa De La Viña has been outside that courtroom all morning. She joins us now live with the latest. Vanessa.
Yeah, Rochelle, we are outside the courthouse here where you can see behind me. This is where we're expecting them to bring Todd Kohlhepp out of that courtroom in just a few minutes here now that hearing is wrapping up. But it was an emotional day for the families of Kohlhepp's victims as they finally saw justice served for their loved ones. Let's give you a look inside that courtroom from earlier this morning. It was a packed courtroom as they finally got the chance to tell Kohlhepp how he changed their lives forever. Mothers and fathers shared tearful stories of never seeing their loved ones again, and children whose parents would never see them grow up. And some said they would never forgive Kohlhepp. Others said they hated him, and one even called him evil. Melissa Ponder, the widow of Scott Ponder, who was killed at Superbike Motorsports, said she's been through, quote, a living hell since the brutal murders in 2003.
There truly isn't justice when an individual is murdered due to the finality of such an act. I'm grateful that Kayla Brown was found alive, for without that, I would still be in the dark. At least now we can semi-close this chapter of our lives and truly start healing. There is no closure when you lose a loved one or loved ones in my case, but I do feel peace in knowing that we have an answer and we can clearly be the individual responsible for the tremendous amount of damage.
Ultimately, good will triumph over evil. I thank God for a nation who does not allow evil to walk the streets. God has put his finger on this. God has put a period on it.
Now, while nothing can bring back the loved ones that these families have lost, they say they're thankful that Kayla Brown survived and brought them the answers that they have been desperate for a long time. Live in Spartanburg, Vanessa De La Viña, 7 News.
So powerful hearing those victims' loved ones at the stand. Vanessa, thank you. One more time, here's what we know so far. Todd Kohlhepp pleaded guilty to 7 counts of murder, plus 30 years for sexual assault and an additional 30 years for kidnapping. That means he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He accepted a plea deal, taking the death penalty off the table. We will, of course, continue our team coverage on WSPA.com and also through the 7 News app that is just a download away. We'll also have live reports starting tonight on 7 News Live at 5. Switching gears now, the weekend is here and it looks like the sun is here to stay. Let's go ahead and check in with meteorologist Malachi Rogers with a preview of your holiday forecast.
Yeah, it's a weekend that's going to include a lot of sunshine, a much warmer couple of days across the upstate and western North Carolina. Already we're seeing temperatures climb to the mid-70s in the upstate, low 70s in the mountains, and those temperatures are about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than what we saw yesterday. Lots of sunshine, and this is heating things up as we take a look at our satellite and radar. It's clear, and it stays clear through the afternoon for both the upstate and the mountains. So highs today right around 80 in the upstate, 77 in the mountains, mostly clear skies. And for those of you that are hitting the road today for some Memorial Day travel, we're looking at temperatures across the southeast with sunshine and 80s. We're going to take a look at the Memorial Day weekend forecast here at home coming up in just a few minutes.
Malachi, thank you. The new restaurant that took over the site of a former strip club in Greenville County has filed a lawsuit following recent citations. The lawsuit filed by Bucks Racks and Ribs is against the county and the sheriff's office. According to the Greenville News, court documents say that lawsuit claims the business's right to freedom of expression is being violated. The suit also says the entertainment provided is protected by the First Amendment. The restaurant opened last month, you may remember, in the same building where Platinum Plus once operated. New details now on a nightclub shooting that happened in Woodruff on Sunday, leaving 3 people injured. Police have arrested the second suspect they were looking for, Terrence McKissick, this morning, and also a third suspect, 19-year-old Robert Reynolds, was taken into custody on warrants for attempted murder and presenting a firearm. 28-year-old Jamal Higgins was arrested earlier this week. New details at noon. An upstate Chick-fil-A is now back to normal after firefighters were called out for a carbon dioxide leak. This happened last night on Highway 123 in Pickens County. The fire chief tells 7 News 8 employees were in the restaurant at the time of that leak. Some did get sick, but thankfully no one was transported to the hospital. They say that leak may have started when someone was changing out a piece of equipment. More information coming in about a deadly crash on Interstate 85. This happened last night on northbound at mile marker 60. SC Highway Patrol tells us the driver of the Ford Focus ran off the road, hitting a tractor trailer. Troopers say that truck was legally parked. The driver of the vehicle died at the scene. President Trump is attending the G7 summit today in Sicily, joining the leaders of 6 other wealthy democracies in a big effort to combat terrorism. That's going to be a focal point, but discussions on climate change and free trade are also expected to prove more challenging. Weijia Zhang reports from the White House.
This morning, after arriving in Sicily for the G7 summit, President Trump tweeted, getting ready to engage G7 leaders on many issues, including economic growth, terrorism, and security. The president and 6 other heads of state are holding several meetings today and tomorrow. They are also expected to tackle climate change, which the president has called a hoax.
It is no secret that leaders who are meeting today sometimes have very different positions on topics such as climate change and trade.
Environmental activists staged demonstrations calling on members of the G7 to pressure Mr. Trump to support the Paris Climate Accord or move forward without the United States.
G7 countries played a major role in polluting our planet and must now lead the way to the solution.
The president has taken an offensive approach in Europe, scolding some of the most loyal allies of the United States for not paying their fair share in defense spending as members of NATO. Still, the president is hailing the trip as a success. Earlier on the sidelines of the G7 summit, Mr. Trump met with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe about a range of topics, including the threat posed by North Korea.
It's a big problem. It's a world problem. And it will be solved at some point.
President Trump is also set to meet with British Prime Minister Theresa May. Weijia Zhang, CBS News, the White House.
Now, that meeting with May is expected to be tense. British officials are upset with the U.S. over leaked photographs from the scene of the Manchester terror attack. After this, President Trump will be heading back home, his first international trip since taking office. And he also stopped in Saudi Arabia, Israel, the Vatican, and Brussels. Well, coming up on 7 News at noon, this week's edition of Hometown Spotlight, our Christine Scarpelli has more from Oconee County. Check out that waterfall. It's next. How beautiful is this? This week on 7 News' Hometown Spotlight, reporter Christine Scarpelli and photographer Ryan Goodman traveled to Seneca in Oconee County at the corner of the state. What began as a booming railroad town here in the early 20th century has since turned into a place the Visitors Bureau calls one of the top spots to retire in the state. Take a look at what this little city has to offer.
It's home to those who look here for their compass and let the waves guide their day.
Beautiful mountain scenery, wonderful people, and yes, incredibly relaxing.
Ken Sloan with the Mountain Lakes CVB says he is a cure for the overcrowded mind.
Executives or people who are in high profile positions, you can almost see the intensity of their emotions just evaporate, and they just relax, and it's a beautiful feeling.
The perfect prescription in waterfalls and lakes to drown out distress.
Lake Jocassee has about 19 waterfalls, including this one right here at Wrights Creek. When the water's high, you can even swim underneath the falls there, and where I'm standing is typically about 2 feet underwater.
Come ashore and find a city that will quench your thirst for creativity. Local restaurants line Ram Cat Alley, named for felines that would eat fish scraps from the meat market. There's also shops to buy gifts or gear for your lake house, and musicians play live jazz on Thursday nights, part of the history here in Seneca.
I never thought this would happen in Seneca, South Carolina.
The Bertha Lee Strickland Museum displays stories from local African Americans.
Well, we have a rich history here in the upstate too, and Seneca's going to tell that story.
Strickland worked in the Lunny home next door for nearly half a century. A prominent, wealthy Seneca family, their home is now restored by curator John Martin to its 1930s charm.
And no, we never had a blueprint. We had to go from scratch. And it was an amazing adventure.
A map will lead you through nearby Essequina Falls and the Stump House Tunnel left over from the railroad boom of the 1900s. But locals say you can find your way without it.
It's just serene.
Just follow your peace of mind.
If you want therapy, this is the place to be.
In Seneca, Christine Scarpelli, 7 News.
Sure is. Seneca Fest is happening this weekend, kicking off today at 4. It will feature live music, food, and carnival rides for the kids, as well as lots of crafts. It wraps up Saturday evening with an Aaron Tippin concert at 9 o'clock. You can also catch Jazz on the Alley every Thursday evening in downtown. Coming up, a Montana politician wins the special election. More on that win and his alleged assault on a reporter just the night before the victory. That's coming up next.
As we head to break on this Friday afternoon, we have a lot of sunshine in the upstate and in western North Carolina. A lot of folks visiting the Biltmore Estate on this Memorial Day weekend. We'll take a look at that forecast and what you can expect closer to home when we come back after this.
We continue our live coverage right now. This is a look into the Spartanburg County Courthouse. That's where former realtor Todd Kohlhepp has pleaded guilty to 7 consecutive murder charges. Kohlhepp was given 7 life sentences plus 30 years for criminal sexual conduct and 30 years for kidnapping. Right now, we're waiting for him to exit the courtroom. This should be the door that he'll be leaving out of shortly. We'll continue keeping you updated right here and also online at WSPA.com. We'll also come back to this live when we see him exit the courtroom. Greg Gianforte won the special election for Montana's House seat, which comes just a day after being charged with assaulting a political reporter. Meg Oliver reports.
And when you make a mistake, you have to own up to it.
Greg Gianforte won, but his victory speech was a humble apology to the reporter he allegedly assaulted.
I should not have treated that reporter that way. And for that, I'm sorry, Mr. Ben Jacobs.
Guardian political reporter Ben Jacobs recorded this audio of his encounter with Gianforte on the eve of the election.
Speak with Shane, please.
But you don't. Sick and tired of you guys. The last time you came here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Jesus. Get the hell out of here.
That's not the person that I am, and it's not the way I'll lead in this state.
House Speaker Paul Ryan had called on Gianforte to apologize.
There is no time where a physical altercation should occur with the press or with just between human beings.
Republicans poured millions into the race. President Trump at the G7 meeting in Sicily praised the victory. Gianforte's supporters say the apology puts the incident behind them.
I honestly do. I think this is part of life.
Gianforte must still appear in court on the misdemeanor assault charge. He could face a maximum of 6 months in jail and a $500 fine. Meg Oliver, CBS News, New York.
Okay. Meg Oliver reporting there. Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, has issued a statement saying elections are about choices and people in Montana made their choice. All right, we're going to go back to that live shot we just showed you a moment ago, continuing our coverage right now where reaction continues to pour in. This is 7th Circuit Solicitor Barry Barnett speaking at the podium. We're going to listen in.
The first one I did actually with Trey Gowdy. Was done back in October 2001, the Richard Bernard Moore case. He is still on death row. His state appeals are still not done. I know y'all are probably familiar with this, and right now the last execution we've done in South Carolina is 2011. And that was Jeffrey Monson. He volunteered, he waived all his rights. And we don't even have the drugs at this point to carry out the death sentence. I'm a firm believer in the death penalty. This was a death penalty case, no question about it. But it's not fair to these family members to wait years and years and years for justice. And that's the biggest problem I see with our death penalty today. We need to have something done here in South Carolina. because families need closure, they need justice. And this is the way to get this for this families, for this situation. Because like I said, a lot of these families, several of them has been waiting over 13 years. And one thing I can say is they met with me. They're very good people. They've been through some very difficult times. And I hope this does bring them closure. I hope we never hear about Mr. Kohlhepp again. Part of the agreement or the contract was that he had waived all his appeals, waived all his post-conviction relief. He cannot file any of those under that circumstance. If he does, he violates the agreement, the convictions will stand, and he'll come back for sentencing, which will be facing a potential death sentence. If he escapes from the Department of Corrections, he'll be facing that. So, but the one thing I want to carry out is, I can't say enough for the sheriff and his team, for the victims' families, but I would like to, one thing, if we're going to have a death penalty in South Carolina, we need to have one that's effective, that one that carries out justice in a reasonable amount of time. And right now it isn't. And hopefully these families, they're going to address you one at a time as they'd like to. I'm going to turn to Sheriff Wright at this time, let him address you a little bit, and then we'll get to all the family members.
First and foremost, I want to thank God for the closure that we are at this point. You got to continue to pray for the families. This is nowhere near over. This is just another phase in a process that they don't have to deal with anymore. I've been encouraged by the true grit of the families of the motorbike. Those are the ones that I've dealt with the longest. And I'm impressed with their will to survive and to carry on the legacy of their loved one that was brutally taken from them. The Sheriff's Department gives you their word that we will look back over things that we have done, what worked and what didn't, and I vow to you that we will continue to search for other people who need and deserve closure. They will no one outwork us. I want to thank the Solicitor's Office for their diligent work on this case, because it's not just enough that we arrest somebody and give them to them. It's very important that they get them to the finished product, and they did that very well. I want to say thank you to our investigators. They, man, there's so many man hours, so many prayers, so many frustrations, so many crying. You know, I was very emotional about this whole ordeal, but, you know, one of the victim's family reminded me that our God's good. He's good all the time. And he's the only one that can bring peace into everyone's heart, and that's what I pray for. So I don't want to take up any more of the victim's time. It's about them today. But I just wanted to say I'm humbled and thankful that I got to walk a little bit through my life with them. Thank you.
I'm going to start with the victims in the order we went into the hearing. I know Melissa would like to say anything else at this time. She's welcome.
I've been waiting on this for a long time. I have had my life plastered all over, everywhere, for 13 years, and I continually said that if it brought someone to justice, it would all be worth it, and it would be okay, and I stand by that. I don't regret that all of my life's been everywhere, and it's okay. I feel nothing towards Todd Kohlhepp. I'm numb when it comes to him. The most emotional that I have been during this process was when they described the events of that day. I, in my heart, have a really, really hard time believing that my late husband would have ever made anybody feel less of a person, or that just was not his demeanor. And so the reason that he is using in order to have wiped out 4 people that day, I can't accept that. There's no way. I fell in love with a true Southern gentleman, a person that ran a family business, that created an environment that people were drawn to, that they wanted to come to. And so for, that statement to be made that the owner was making fun of him or made him feel bad, there was a lot of joking around that went on in that business, and that is why people were drawn to it. It was lighthearted, it was fun, and that tells me maybe just how socially inept Mr. Kohlhepp is, like possibly couldn't understand. I can tell you right now that the only thing I can think of that could have ever gotten me through something like this is this right here. I am so grateful that God allowed me to keep this kid. We wanted this kid badly. And the only thing I can think of to help me get through and fill a little bit of that hole is this kid. God knew what I needed, and He allowed me to keep him, and I'm so grateful. And the thoughts that keep coming to me today are Scott and Beverly, they're at peace. I know that. I know that they're at peace. I don't have any question in my mind that this is the individual that took their lives. I know that that's been out there, that this man did take their lives. It was him. There's no question in my mind. Scott Ponder has a lot to be proud of in this child. Beverly Guy has a lot to be proud of in this grandson of hers. Every interview he's ever done, anything he's ever said, I just want you to know that's him. He's a strong kid. He's been through a lot, and he's got a lot to be proud of. I have a lot to be proud of. I feel very blessed. I pray for Kayla Brown. I do want to make sure she understands that I'm grateful. I will, from the bottom of my heart, that she's alive. Because if she had not been alive, we wouldn't be here. Wouldn't be here talking to you. We're all going to heal differently. I feel at peace. I feel a lot of peace. If there's anything you want to say.
I'm good for now, I guess.
All right.
I know the McGrawls had left. I didn't know if Miss Coxey was still here, if she wanted to speak or say anything.
She can now, she may be back.
Okay. Robert, is there anything you'd like to say? Okay. Mr. Guy, is there anything you'd like to say?
First thing I'd like to say, mostly to the media, y'all been respectful the last 13 years over, especially the ones that I've worked with, and y'all kept in what we needed to hear and what we didn't need to hear at times. It's been a tough 13 and a half years, but today does bring some closure. And one of the things that, like I told Todd today when I was speaking, hopefully one day he can find God, because he's never going to get outside that prison until the day he dies. And one thing he needs to do to try to help him go somewhere beside hell. But what I would like to say today is something about Beverly, that she would have been the first one to tell him that she forgive him, even though what she done, because she was just the type of person that would have always find the good in everybody, regardless. And no matter what, even though she didn't get to ever see her grandchild, that's probably the the best smile I ever seen, and she was always smiling. It was the day that Scott and Melissa called us from Arizona and told us that they was gonna have a child. Beverly was so elated. And I know she gets to see from above, but she never got that opportunity just to hold her grandchild, and that's sad. Thank you.
Is there anything you want to say? Charlie, is there anything you want to say?
I'd like to say thank you to Sheriff Wright and all of his officers, to Solicitor Barnett for handling the case the way he did. He was very gracious to us, always looked out for our best interest. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes, behind both of these two men, that needed to be thanked as well. Maybe we'll get closer.
Ms. Shiflett, is there anything you'd like to say? I'm sorry.
You were just listening live to a press conference inside the same courtroom where former realtor Todd Kohlhepp just received 7 life sentences after pleading guilty to killing 7 people. We heard from the victims' loved ones. We also just saw Spartanburg County Sheriff Chuck Wright choking up Solicitor Barry Barnett with the 7th Circuit. He said he's a firm believer in the death penalty, that this was in fact a death penalty case, but he doesn't want to make these victims' families wait any longer. Again, Todd Kohlhepp will be in prison for the rest of his life. We've got time for a quick check of weather with Malachi.
All right, and as we take a look at our weather, our current temperatures are in the 70s across the upstate and western North Carolina. A warm start to the afternoon, and temperatures today are expected right around 80 degrees in the upstate and in western North Carolina. Sunshine throughout the day today, warm, dry weather. So we jump to tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., still dealing with mostly sunny skies. Late in the afternoon tomorrow, though, I want you to be aware we could see a few passing thunderstorms early in the afternoon, racing through the upstate and the mountains. These would be fast moving, so you want to be aware of that. Stay tuned to WSPA. Make sure you have our web app, and of course, meteorologist Dan Bickford and meteorologist Jason Nappy will be in this weekend, keeping you up to date. We go through Sunday. We start out dry once again, and another line of showers possible moving through the area late in the day on Sunday. So although we're going to see a much warmer weekend heading our way, we're still dealing with the possibility of a few scattered thunderstorms as we head into the weekend. Dry and sunny today with a high of 81. Upper 80s on Saturday and Sunday with those pop-up thunderstorms in the afternoons. That's to Monday as well. And the rest of the next week, though, mostly dry. Highs in the mid-80s across the upstate. And for western North Carolina, expect highs today near 80, low 80s and upper 70s for our Memorial Day weekend with a few pop-up thunderstorms in the afternoons.
Video now of Todd Kohlhepp leaving the courthouse in Spartanburg. This after receiving 7 life sentences. You see him coming out the door here, quickly loading into the vehicle. A moment that these families from the Superbike murders, the families of Charlie Carver and Caleb Brown, Megan and Johnny Coxey, have all been waiting for. We're going to have much more on this for you. Live team coverage coming up on 7 News at 5, live at 5, and also on WSPA.com. Facebook, and through the 7 News app. We're going to go to break right now. When we come back, we'll return you to your normally scheduled programming. Thanks for watching.